Good morning and welcome to the New York City Council hearing of the Committee on Economic Development jointly with Contracts. At this time, can everybody please silence your cell phones? If you wish to testify, please come up to the Sergeant at Arms desk to fill out a testimony slip. At this time and going forward, no one is to approach the dais. I repeat, no one is to approach the dais. Chairs, we are ready to begin.
This hearing is called to order. Good morning. I am Councilmember Julie Won, Chair of the Committee on Contracts. Thank you for joining us today for today's joint hearing with the Committee on Economic Development to examine the quality of food in New York City's shelters for the homeless and recently arrivals. I'd like to thank representatives from the administration, members of the public, and my council colleagues who have joined us today, including Chair Farias, as well as Councilmember Kevin Riley. Today's proceedings follow up on a December 2023 hearing that sought answers to persistent reports of poor food quality in many of the emergency shelters the city had established to house the post-pandemic influx of asylum seekers. At the hearing over a year ago, representatives of city agencies promised the council they were incorporating residents' feedback and food and seeking culturally competent and religiously compliant menus such as halal meals. However, since then, shelter residents and advocates continue to report the food quality as it remains poor, as well as troubling ongoing reports in the press that food vendors have served Muslim residents mislabeled halal food or halal food prepared with other items that do not conform to their religious standards, leaving Muslim residents with nothing suitable to eat. Today, we seek to understand how food quality can be so poor and residents unable to get options that meet their religious, nutritional, and/or dietary needs despite promises of the administration a year ago. The committee also seeks to understand how the city has managed shelter food after moving beyond the initial emergency contracts set up to meet the demand from post-COVID asylum seekers. Much of our last hearing focused on the vendor DocGo, whose contract expired in 2024. DocGo drew criticism for many aspects of its operation, but among the most frequent complaints was the quality of food that it served its residents, much of which ended thrown away uneaten. How have the vendors who took over from DocGo managed the food, such as Gartner, and have they improved where DocGo failed? Yet we see that the subcontractors for the food remain the same, with Regina's Caterers, Riviera's Caterers, as well as Whitson's, where we have the top complaints for these subcontractors who continue to do business with the city despite their complaints and despite their food being disgusting and unable to be eaten. How is the administration holding bad actors who continuously provide standard meals to shelter residents accountable? We will also examine my bill, Intro 905, which would require vendors with active food service contracts valued at $100,000 or more provide standardized feedback surveys to consumers on a quarterly basis. The results will be compiled and shared with contracting agencies, allowing for data-driven decision-making in future contracts and accountability. Ensuring that public funds are used responsibly to provide safe, nutritious, and palatable food is not just a matter of policy. It is a matter of dignity and public health. By mandating continuous feedback, this bill establishes a lasting system of oversight that will improve food quality immediately and in the long term. Before I conclude, I would like to thank the following council staff for their work on this hearing: Contracts Committee Policy Analyst Alex Yablon, Senior Legislative Counsel Chris Sartori, for my office staff Nick Gulota and Nelly Vera Martinez, and the members of City Hall security and technical staff working to make this hearing run smoothly. I will now turn it over to Chair Farias for the Committee on Economic Development.
Good morning. I am Majority Leader Amanda Farias, and I chair the Committee on Economic Development. I'd like to thank Co-Chair One for holding this hearing today, and I would also like to thank the administration and the public for attending today's important hearing. We have called today's hearing to discuss how the administration ensures reliable food quality in our city's shelters. In 2023, at the height of the city's influx of migrants, we held a hearing on shelter food procurement and examined how the city took steps to ensure individuals in our shelter system were being properly cared for and delivered healthy meals. We believe that increasing transparency in the process of how our city agencies buy, prepare, and serve food to those in our shelter systems is paramount. Today, we have the Mayor's Office of Food Policy present to provide testimony regarding our city's food procurement process and how the city addresses any deficiencies that may lead to the inaccessibility of healthy meals in our shelter system. We are also interested in discussing how the Mayor's Office of Food Policy coordinates with other city agencies and how these agencies engage and contract with city food vendors. I also want to acknowledge that there have been recent and continued troubling reports on the mismanagement in the delivery of quality food in our shelter system, particularly related to spoiled food, inaccessibility to culturally appropriate meals, and alleged financial mismanagement. It is our responsibility as the oversight entity of the city to ensure that these issues are addressed and that all individuals in our shelter system are properly cared for. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to thank the Economic Development Committee's staff, Counsel Luke Hamill, Senior Policy Analyst William Hungach, and Financial Analyst Glenn Martelloni, as well as the Contracts Committee staff for all their hard work on this hearing. I'll now turn the microphone over to Chair Wan.
Okay, I'm going to pass it over to my legislative counsel for swearing in.
Thank you, Chair. Would representatives of the administration please raise your right hand if you're able? Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before these committees and to respond honestly to council member questions? Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so we can begin testimony.
Good morning, Chair Wan, Chair Farias, and members of the Committees on Contracts, Economic Development, Councilmember Riley. My name is Kate McKenzie, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Mayor's Office of Food Policy. Joining me today are my colleagues from the Department of Social Services, First Deputy Commissioner Jill Berry, Associate Commissioner of Special Population and Support Services, Cindy Tita, Assistant Commissioner and Diversity Officer, Raymond Medea, and from the Mayor's Office of Contract Services, Deputy Director for Procurement Operations, Mehak Kapoor. I welcome the opportunity to speak to you today about food quality in our city's shelters. The mission of the Mayor's Office of Food Policy is to advance the city's efforts to increase food security, promote access to and the consumption of healthy foods, and support economic and environmental sustainability across the food system. As part of that, MOFP supports the Department of Homeless Services and the Mayor's Office of Contract Services in their efforts to improve food quality, nutrition, and operational efficiency across the city's shelter system. We do this by providing strategic advisement and support in several ways, including contract language revisions, data collection, contract management and enforcement, menu adjustments, culinary training, food education, and other programmatic opportunities that enhance the effectiveness of agency food programs. These efforts aim to ensure that the food served in shelters and other institutional settings throughout the city meets high standards for nutrition and quality. MOFP also brings subject matter expertise to MOCS to ensure that the contracting tools and resources that it offers are in line with city requirements and priorities. For example, MOFP will soon include a new section on our website to provide helpful and useful information to food vendors. We've worked closely with MOCS to promote the utilization of best value bids for food when possible. A best value bid allows city agencies to buy goods taking into account quality and equity. For the first time this year, the Department of Corrections, as an example, included in its bid evaluation not only cost, but other desirable attributes like taste, support to New York State food businesses, and organic products, all in consultation with the law department. MOFP also works with MOCS and food buying agencies to incorporate our Good Food Purchasing Initiative data reporting requirements into solicitations and contracts. So let's speak a little bit specifically about the Department of Homeless Services. It serves more than 14 million meals and snacks annually throughout the shelter system. There are 3 ways that meals are provided in the DHS shelters. First, in shelters operated by DHS, of which there are currently about 30, The Department of Homeless Services has 3 direct contracts that have a total value in excess of $160 million over a 3-year period. That's from July of 2023 through fiscal year 27. This means that the vendors are responsible for delivering meals that are typically frozen to the shelter, and then the shelter staff are responsible for heating, serving the meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. A second method is that a provider may subcontract with a food vendor. In this case, a provider is required to obtain 3 bids. Approximately 347 providers run facilities that utilize food subcontracts. And finally, in the third case, of which there are about 50 sites that operate like this, a provider may prepare its own food. And typically that's either on site or utilizing another shelter within the network to deliver meals to them. Finally, there's a reasonable accommodation process that's available to meet clients' religious and medical needs. That might take the form of kosher or halal meals or a specific, renal or dialysis diet that is required. DHS provides 3 meals a day and snacks to clients. The meals are expected to be healthy, served at an appropriate temperature, respect the medical and/or dietary needs and religious requests of the individuals that are served. They aim to reflect the diversity of cultures served throughout the shelter system. By following these guidelines, DHS strives to provide quality meals to the population that needs them with as little waste as possible. There's a variety of quality control and feedback systems in place that are used to measure and control quality. All meals are required to adhere to the New York City food standards, and meal service must adhere to sanitary codes. These standards, the food standards, are updated every 3 years based on current scientific evidence and the ability of the industry to meet those standards, coupled with specific agency feedback. Menus from the vendors are sent to the DHS nutritionists and are analyzed to determine compliance to these standards. And, as you noted, in fiscal 25, that was the first year that our food standards were required for agencies to solicit client or consumer feedback centrally to DHS. DHS also requires that shelter directors or their designees conduct monthly meal quality tests. These tests evaluate temperature, appearance, and accuracy for each meal period. Again, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Providers are required to submit menus with nutritional information to DHS for review when initiating meal services and whenever there is a change in the vendor or the menu. It's worth noting that menus are typically updated on a seasonal basis. Providers will have a spring-summer menu and also a winter-fall menu. If a menu is found to be non-compliant to what has been submitted, DHS provides feedback and, as needed, technical assistance. Providers are also required to keep a sample of all meals for a prescribed period of time, 2 days in a fridge or 3 days in a freezer. These samples are subject to microbial testing by the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene in the case of a suspected food poisoning or infection. Together, this process of inspections and reviews by our health department and our Department of Homeless Services provide continual monitoring and assessment of food quality at the DHS shelters. Through all of these systems, from client-level feedback to the checks of DOHMH and the inspections that DHS staff conduct, these all could result in corrective action plans if warranted. In addition to Department of Homeless Services' efforts to monitor and assess food quality, they maintain open lines of communication for clients to provide input on food quality. There's several ways that this can happen, from reaching out to 311 or the DSS Ombudsman with feedback. The phone numbers here are listed, as well as the email address. The Department of Homeless Services logs complaints using its IQ database system and triages for direction to the appropriate DHS staff and providers. Lastly, DHS conducts client satisfaction surveys. One avenue for that triage process is for the Homeless Services Program administrators to make the shelter provider aware of the complaint and, if warranted, work with them to create corrective action plans. As noted above, all shelter providers throughout the city are required now to solicit and report on client feedback. This year took the form of a QR code-based anonymous food satisfaction survey for direct input from shelter clients, in addition to the phone number and email address that I spoke about above. So a few points also on vendor performance. Vendors, whether they are those direct meal providers, as I mentioned, or the providers that subcontract meal service, are required to report on a variety of factors to ensure optimal meal quality. All shelter providers that prepare or serve meals are required to hold a food service establishment permit from the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. This ensures that the Department of Health is aware and able to conduct an initial inspection to verify that the meal setup is appropriate and that the food service staff have a food handler certificate demonstrating that they've received food service training and are up to date with it. The Health Department annually inspects all sites to ensure compliance with New York City and New York State food safety regulations. Additionally to those DOH inspections, the Homeless Services team conducts routine site review inspections twice a year to monitor the requirements and reporting outlined above. These inspections involve reviewing the kitchens and the seating areas for things like cleanliness. Is the equipment operating in the way that it should? Is food being stored in the way that it should? That the permits for food handlers are current, and that proper temperatures for the storing and serving of meals are kept. Those inspections results are incorporated into the quarterly Shelter Repair Squad scorecard on the Department of Homeless Services website. Any of these checks, as well as the client feedback plan, as mentioned above, could all trigger, once again, that corrective action plan. Finally, the Department of Homeless Services adheres to the Procurement Policy Board rules regarding documentation and evaluation of vendor performance to call for periodic, unannounced checks, interviews, and the surveying of clients. I want to just speak for a moment about an opportunity that the team is making to bring new vendors into play. In line with the administration's goals of building a robust ecosystem of vendors and serving as a strong partner in MNWBE success, the DSS Marketplace team is launching a capacity building workshop series in March. This series aims to help local restaurants and catering companies interested in adding a business development component to enable them to execute large-scale food service capabilities and potentially set them up for contracts. The series is designed to strengthen the business's ability to engage with New York City agencies, human service providers, and prime contract holders. The workshops will bring firms together with representatives from Mayor's Office of Food Policy, the Health Department, and the Department of Social Services Program and Nutrition staff, as well as the Department of Small Business Services, for detailed guidance that will help these local organizations better understand the requirements and resources that impact firms' ability to operate successfully in this space. It will include extensive Q&A with subject matter experts, and later it will involve programming that will leverage mentorship, bringing local restaurants and catering companies together with successful certified contractors and nonprofit providers who are currently performing on city contracts to, again, create that learning network and sharing of resources. The workshop series will culminate in a matchmaking event, bringing vendors together with providers and agency representatives. We believe that this effort will contribute to more local participation, diverse food, and profitable contracting experiences for participating firms, and increase competition for food contracts over the longer term. The safety and well-being of DHS clients requires this complex food distribution system to operate well. This drives the robust processes for oversight and obtaining feedback from clients that I've described. DHS has a quality control process so that the critical control points of food safety, including appropriate temperatures, the storage of food, the safe environment that food is stored in, and hygiene are all as strong as possible. DHS is engaging in a process at this time to strengthen its guidance, training, and oversight to ensure the highest quality food at our shelters, especially as the landscape has experienced such dramatic shifts over the recent years. Finally, just a note on Intro 905. It would require food service contractors with city agencies with contracts valued over $100,000 or more to provide standardized feedback surveys to consumers of their service on a quarterly basis. While we clearly support the intention of this bill, we would like to work with the council to consider how it would advance our shared goals to increase transparency and food quality across the agencies. As noted previously, agencies are now required to solicit feedback on meals and snacks served, and many factors, including client feedback, including the taste and the presentation of food, which dramatically impact the experience of people eating it, are determined by food preparation, which the vendors themselves do not control. We look forward to discussing how best to achieve your shared goals with us. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak, and we welcome your questions.
Thank you so much. Okay. We're gonna dive right into the questions. So my first question is, how does the city set the daily per dollar per person limit to meal costs? Because we're still finding across the city, across agencies, even within an agency for DHS, that there is a wide variety of per diems, and we're also seeing the contracts themselves awarded, for example, to the same vendor, Regina's Caterers, but their per diem at one shelter is $12, the shelter down the block is $15, the shelter down the other block is $8 within one council district for the same exact 3 meals that are being served. So can you help us understand how you all are calculating per dollar per person limit for meal costs and why it still is not standardized across the city, across agencies, and across each vendor?
Sure. Thank you for that question. I'm going to defer that to my colleague, First Deputy Commissioner Barry. I also just want to underscore that this is an incredibly important question, and as we can all experience right now from the volatility of prices in grocery stores, this, what my colleague is about to articulate too, what we do is not just ensure that the food prices alone are considered, but there's labor involved and many other factors that contribute to the price discrepancies that you're referring to.
Yes, we were just going to ask the follow-up of if you count in the cost of inflation as well as market volatility, like the bird flu and the cost of eggs, et cetera.
Thank you, Chair Wan, for that question. So I'm going to respond on behalf of, just to be clear, the Department of Social Services and DHS and how the prices are set throughout the system in DHS specifically. So there is no set per diem, there is no set cap. Every food contract is competitively bid individually to get the best price for the city. And so that is one reason for the variety of prices. Specifically to your question, and you know, Kate talked about how the food, the per diems include not just the price of food, but it's the price of food, it's the price of labor, it's the cost of preparing the meal, the location where the meal is being prepared, and the delivery of the meal. So
can you help me understand how Regina's Caterers or Riviera Caterers, it's all being produced in one warehouse in Brooklyn? So how is there a difference in cost then that way, if you're talking about preparation?
Yeah, of course. So I'm going to give you a good example, I think, of how you could have one food vendor providing the exact same food to 2 different shelters at two different prices. So there's a variety of things that play into it. Part of it is the conditions of the shelter facility itself. So you may have one shelter facility that has food storage, has large refrigerators, freezers, and the ability to reheat meals. That shelter can take delivery of meals once, twice a week, whatever their arrangement is with the food vendor, but they don't need daily food delivery. So their per diem price is going to be a little bit lower than another shelter that may be getting the exact same meals from the exact same food vendor, but they don't have the ability to store meals, and they don't have the ability to heat meals. So they need to take delivery of meals every single day, that those meals need to be delivered at the time hot meals are being served, and that the shelter staff are there to receive them. So the per diem for that shelter, for again, with the same vendor, with the same meals, is going to be a little bit higher.
That is not true in my district. I could name a nonprofit, for example, ICL. They run more than 3 shelters in my district. I have photos of their freezers. I have photos of their kitchens. I have photos of their microwaves. It's exactly the same setup. Yet you have a range of $6 up to $15. How does that make sense?
Each shelter is bidding out these contracts separately and at different times. It doesn't make a lot of sense financially, I do understand that, but the circumstances of the bids that the vendor received at the time that they were bidding out the food service for one shelter versus another shelter, market conditions can change. The price of eggs changes over time. Things like that do happen over time.
So what
that
I'm
leads to
learning is
differences.
that it's been a year since we had our first hearing. You still have not figured out how to change your process to standardize the cost of each meal and per diem per site, and we're still have a huge fluctuation in costs across the board, across the city, and you still have done nothing to change it. And yes, the cost of food changes, and there's market fluctuations, yet you have not done anything to be in response to it, because what you're telling me that it is a fixed cost, and no matter what the market conditions are, that cost will not change, and the provider will just have to figure out how they're going to provide 3 meals within the same cost. For example, $8 for 3 meals. How are you supposed to eat anything?
Right, so through the new needs process, every shelter has the opportunity to request new need funding for their contracts, and that could be for a variety of things that they're paying for at the shelter, including food costs, and they have the opportunity to submit a new need for increased food prices for their food vendors.
Can you also help me understand, you said that it was competitively bid. Not all of our bids were competitively bid. There were emergency contracts with emergency subcontracts that were not competitive. And they were not the best price, because we have people who have called my office, let us know that even though they were the lowest bidder, the city chose to go with Riviera, which we have tons of complaints about the food quality, and even though they weren't the lowest bidder, you still chose to go with them. Can you help me understand?
For the contracts the direct contracts that we operate, they were all competitively bid, and for the subcontracts that the shelters are letting out and requesting bids back on, they are required to get 3 bids. They are required to choose the lowest responsive bidder. We do review that documentation. Of course, if there are instances where that's not happening, we would love to have that information so we could follow up on that specific, with that shelter provider who may not be following the process.
I will definitely follow up. We just heard from the Executive Director, McKinsey, about quality control and feedback systems, and I think those updates are great since we last met a year ago. So can you help me understand, for existing contracts that have been bad faith actors that we continue to get complaints about, like Regina's, Riviera's, and Woodson's, can you help me understand the standards and processes for a food provider that's already on contract with you to be approved for a renewal of these contracts or to continue their contracts?
So the direct service, the direct food service contracts that we have, I believe, run through the end of FY 26, and will be rebid in FY 27. Individual subcontractors for the individual shelters are on a variety of different schedules, and they can rebid those contracts as needed.
So you're saying that you're not going to do the food quality control before that rebidding process happens for renewal?
No, food quality control is done regularly. So every shelter is responsible for a monthly quality food reviews that looking for adherence to the menu and nutrition standards, to quantities of food, temperature, appearance, and taste. Every shelter is required to do that monthly. DHS does twice annual inspections of all food services. DOHMH does annual inspections of food. We also have quarterly contract monitoring for the food, and our DHS nutritionist team does random and targeted spot checks of food quality.
When it comes to compliance monitoring, it's come to my attention that you have about 1.5, at most 2 people doing these inspections, and you're saying that you do it 2 times annually.
There are 7 inspectors that are doing the food inspections twice a year.
So you're saying that DHS has 7 inspectors for, what's the population of your shelters? Or how many shelters does DHS oversee in the city of New York?
It is a very large number of shelters.
What is that number?
It's about 400, over 400.
Okay, so you have 400 shelters, and you are able to complete every single year inspections 2 times a year of those 400 shelters with your staff?
And we are posting the results of those inspections on our websites.
So you swear under oath that you are able to complete those inspections for every single site per year?
That is my understanding. I would have to go back and absolutely check myself.
Okay, we would like to follow up.
We will.
Because it seems that in a comparison for quality control between DFTA for New York City Aging and DHS sites, it seems that there seems to be a very stark difference in the number of staff doing inspections. Almost as many as 30 people who work for DFTA to do these very important food quality control inspections, and it sounds like less than double digits for a very large agency with a very large constituency to do these inspections. And we continue to have quality control issues. For food policy guidelines for minimal calories and nutritional content for shelters, it's been alerted to us through advocates that some meals do not meet the necessary minimal threshold, which you have on your website. And because of that, they are using the inclusion of milk cartons to supplement the caloric needs. Can you speak to how you're looking at the caloric intake per entree, and are you allowing these vendors to supplement with milk or juices instead of the entree itself?
So food vendors are required, shelters are required to provide us with their menus for us to review the menus, and we review those menus to make sure that they comply with the food standards. The quality reviews that the shelter staff are doing monthly, that our nutritionist team is doing randomly, that our contract monitoring teams are also doing, are taking those sample meals and comparing it to the menu to make sure that what is being provided is the same as the menu that we approved and is in line with food standards. And when that is not the case, we bring that immediately to the vendor's attention for correction.
Okay, so if I'm understanding you correctly, they cannot be using milk or juices to supplement the minimal caloric intake that they're supposed to provide per entree.
I think that's a very specific case. I don't have the details about that, but to First Deputy Commissioner's point, all menus are required to be reviewed, and if they are veering off of that menu, which it sounds like that might be the case, if milk was not listed on the menu, then that's an area for exploration.
So if milk is in the menu, so say that my breakfast is a piece of toast and a carton of milk with an apple, then that whole menu counts as the minimal caloric intake, not that it shouldn't be.
That is my understanding, and we'd have
Okay.
to
So that's a
affirm
standard.
with the nutritionist at DHS.
Okay, because when we looked at the nutritional guidelines on your website, and we compared it to the FDA, there was a stark difference where for both men and women, you had it under 2,200 calories, I believe. It was like a range of 1,800 to 2,200. If you look at the federal website, they had it differentiated by gender, so for male and female. And for men, they had it from like 2,400 up to 3,000 calories per day. So there's no surprise that people are still hungry after the meals, and they are frustrated that they're being told to just supplement with milk.
So we'll take a close look at that. Again, I'm not familiar with the details of the caloric requirements for each meal for the specific age group. I do know that, for instance, the kids have a smaller calorie level. That's obviously understandable, but this is something that we'll look more closely in, and also just underscoring that, especially right now, as the federal dietary guidelines are being reviewed, our own food standards are being reviewed, and we'll be releasing an update in the spring of this year.
Okay, I implore you to make sure that we're looking at both men and women, because someone like me at 130 pounds and 5'4" is not going to eat the same amount as a 6'2" man who weighs 250 pounds. So they are not eating enough, and we had reports from shelters and schools of children included being malnourished and showing signs of malnutrition and what that does to a child's development. Moving on, what is the process for shelter residents to get reasonable accommodations for alternative meals such as vegetarian, vegan, halal, or kosher options? And how many reasonable accommodation requests were received in 2024 and how many were granted? Because we have had multiple shelter residents come extremely frustrated that they were not getting their reasonable accommodations for food.
Thank you, Chair. So all shelters are required to post the process for requesting special meals along with their menu, along with information about how to submit complaints about food. Shelters are also required to assist clients in requesting specialized meals such as halal, kosher, and vegetarian that are fairly readily available should be provided as soon as the next meal delivery. Those can be provided provisionally without the need for the client to already have their documentation in place. And so especially for halal, kosher, and vegetarian, those should be available as soon as the next meal delivery after the client requests them.
Who is the client requesting it to?
They are requesting it from the shelter staff themselves.
Verbally, on a piece of paper,
The
digitally?
process for each shelter has to be listed along with the menu that is posted in the shelter.
So is there a standardized process for all the DHS shelters on how you get a special accommodation, or is it however they feel like?
No,
per site?
reasonable accommodations is a very standardized process.
Yes, so if a client hi, good morning. If a client has a reasonable accommodation for a diet specific to their overall health or religious observances, they are to complete a reasonable accommodation form and submit it to the social services team at the shelter. They in turn will reach out to the vendor to get the meal that the client requires.
Can you send us an example of what that process will look like as a follow-up so that we can physically see it? Because I'm also wondering, how is that language accessible? Are you translating it to Arabic, French,
So we do have
Chinese?
We do have interpretation services for all of the clients that we engage with, and our reasonable accommodation form, I know specifically, is in a few languages.
Okay, and every single shelter site has it in multiple languages visibly on how you can access the accommodation?
They should have that posted so that the clients know how to access it, as well as during client engagements with their caseworkers, following up on what their immediate needs are. Those issues are also discussed, and then the caseworker or the social services director can assist them with completing that.
The majority of my sites have no caseworkers in any of the shelters, and they never have. And I just want to point out that I believe that there is 50% staff deficit at DHS, HRA, and DSS. So I don't know how that would be possible.
All of our shelters have lines for caseworkers. If there is a vacancy at a specific shelter, there's other team members there that could assist them.
Okay.
At the December 2023 hearing on shelter food, representatives of health and hospitals responsible for asylum seeker shelters said that they have secured halal food ever since the city first saw large numbers of Muslim asylum seekers from West Africa seeking shelter in October 2022. That it had secured halal food. However, as reported by CBS and Hellgate, Muslim shelter residents and volunteers complained about the food they received, which was provided by Riviera Catering / RC Stillwell LLC. CBS reported in April of 2024 that the halal options often consist of conventional shelter meals without any meat to avoid serving non-halal items. In November 2024, Hellgate interviewed shelter residents housed at Creedmoor Psychiatric Facility who said food labeled as halal seemed not to be. Additionally, Hellgate reported that the food vendor Rivera said in paperwork that it mixed halal and non-halal items. Did Riviera Catering disclose to H&H or the city that they were certified by a third-party halal certifying entity?
Thank you so much for that question. Unfortunately, our colleagues from Health and Hospitals could not be present today. I think they were asked on Friday, but we can certainly follow up on that.
Sure, but do you folks know the process of certification for an entity of a food vending contract? That has to be whether the contractor themselves are certified to do kosher, halal, vegetarian, vegan, etc., and what that means to the contracts provided?
I don't want to speak for H&H, but perhaps Ray or Jill, can you speak to the DHS process?
Sure, and I can speak specifically to RC Stillwell is certified by the American Halal Foundation. So we have a few in our policy. We have a few specific certifications for halal and for kosher that we accept, and the vendors have to follow one of those certifications.
Does every single one of the vending contracts that we look at have to offer at least one of them?
They all have to be able to provide halal meals, kosher meals, vegetarian meals, and other meals as required by our clients.
What's our criteria of enforcement or monitoring to make sure that it's implemented well?
So for the contracts that we directly monitor, we are looking to see those copies of those certifications, and we are reviewing that as we're doing the quality of the meal, reviewing quality of meals. For the shelter providers, they are responsible for monitoring their subcontracted vendors. They are responsible for implementing the food policy and ensuring that people are, that their vendors are, in the case of halal meals, providing appropriately certified halal meals, and we provide guidance to the shelters on what certifications are acceptable.
Sure. I just want to acknowledge that we've been joined by Councilmember Aviles. And then, okay, and so in terms of within the bid or within the contract, once it's given to a vendor, we're saying the onus is on them, the responsibility is on them to make sure their subcontractors or however their certification goes through for halal or any of the other options are monitored and implemented that way. What's a part of the contract if we get instances where they're not following that guideline? Does the contract get removed? Is there a suspension of services? What's the penalty, if any at all, for anyone that is found to not be serving the type of food that they're supposed to be certified in serving?
So for any of our contracts, including when subcontractor poor performance is brought to our attention, always the first option is to work with the vendor to try to get them to correct what was wrong with the contract and to provide the services that we are contracting for, that we are paying for. That is always the first option. And if the vendor is unwilling, unable to comply with the terms of the contract, then we can put them on a corrective action plan.
So it's come to our attention for both of us from the Muslim community that the current certification process that the city is using for certain agencies like H&H is not verified. It is being done like a piece of paper from an entity in Florida saying, sure, you're halal certified, but did you come and inspect the kitchen? Did you come and see how the food is separated? Did you come and physically see that this is indeed halal or kosher? No, this is a piece of paper from an entity in a different state with no inspectors in the city of New York saying that, sure, this is halal. And we are seeing that it isn't. So what Chair Farias is asking you is, what is the city's verification process for halal certification, and why are we allowing third-party inspections to guarantee us that something as serious as religious standards and religious compliance for people's food consumption is done out of state in Florida online or on the phone?
And if we're going to leave enforcement to the vendors themselves, and we have to have in our contract some level of accountability, not just corrective action, but a penalty or removal of contract if they're found to not have the actual certification. I mean, we're leaving too much onus and responsibility, whether that's because we're not asking for more money in the budget to have more staffing to make sure we have the certifications or not, but we're trying to make sure that we're properly serving New Yorkers.
I would like to come back to you once we have a chance to speak with our colleagues at H&H and across more detail and come back with the specifics about what the standards in the contracts are, along with what the verification process is.
Okay. I'm just going to ask some general questions as
1 second.
Sure.
We need to understand what the city's verification process is for halal certification. Does anyone at this table know what the verification process is, or are you just taking people's word for it? Like, I could set up an LLC and be like, sure, I'm gonna say that you're halal.
There are a number of different verification processes and entities. I do have a recollection from our experiences during the pandemic about the organization that you're referencing in Florida. And also, I will say that there's differences in the certifying of the kitchens versus the certification of the food itself. And I just would like to be able to speak clearly and correctly about the processes that are utilized by different city agencies on that.
And I just want to point out, even for DHS, not just for H&H, where we're having issues with halal, DHS has a contract with Riviera. The EPIN number is 07117P0003002 that my team and I have reviewed, and it states that the contractor and or subcontractor halal meals must come from a certified vendor. So does DHS verify this information? Does DHS require more than the vendor being registered with the New York State Department of Agriculture? And what happens if a supplier is found to have provided non-halal food after securing the contract, and have there been cases of past non-compliance? And we've also found multiple DHS contracts, which we could share the EPIN numbers for you for, that we've reviewed. There's a difference in language where DHS nutritional specification table for kosher and halal meals. So for kosher, the contract state all kosher meals must be certified kosher vendors and meet religious diet guidelines and requirements. But for halal, they require only all halal meal must be certified. So you don't make the differentiation that it has to be a certified halal vendor and a certified verification process for it to be halal. And does DHS not require that halal meals must be certified from halal vendors, meet religious diet guidelines and requirements? Why are there differences for these two religions for DHS contracts?
So once again, we need to come back to, there are clear distinctions in the certifying bodies for kosher meals and halal meals, and I want to be able to provide you with the accurate information on the different verifications that are required for each, but they are distinctly separate.
Okay, but for both halal and kosher, they should be treated the same. The legal language should be the same, where we say that they need to meet religious diet guidelines and requirements, and both should be certified vendors. And I want to make sure that we have a city verification process. I want you to get back to me on how we're making sure that these verifiers for halal are certified and credible, not some random entity in Florida who's not going to come and actually check out how you're making halal food.
Just taking a moment to recognize Councilmember Vernikoff has joined us. So I just want to dial back a little bit to some of the responses that you folks were giving Chair One. Around the percentage of emergency contracts and bids, do you folks have the numbers in front of you? How many emergency shelter contracts we have right now that have our food procurement, have gone through our food procurement bid and we're serving?
So all of the DHS emergency food contracts were competitively bid.
Okay, and then out of those contracts, do we know the percentage of the number for migrant shelters?
So it's 100% of DHS
Right, so we have,
contracts,
we have
emergency
DHS
contracts,
shelters.
migrant
How many of the
contracts.
migrant shelters that we've had on emergency bids, emergency contracts, do we have that number in front of us?
The number of DHS shelters.
The emergency bids, where all of these complications are coming from, where we've had the emergency bids that had to go out for procurement of the food contracts. Do we know the percentage of those right now? Our migrant numbers have been going down, or have been steadying, rather, serving the same amount of people. I'm trying to get an idea of how many of those emergency contracts are still out there. Like, what's the physical number? 10, 20, 240, something like that. And trying to get an idea of how the recertification, I know you said they happen continually, the contracts happen in recertification. I want to know the percentage that are out there right now.
Sure. So DHS can speak to where they are. As you recall from our last December hearing, we were, at the time, had Health and Hospitals, HPD, and DHS that were all operating. And as you know, the counts are going down, thankfully. And I think DHS can speak to how the integration of shelters that are, again, winding down, but if there are any that are still reliant, which I understand is no, from emergency contracts, as opposed to the transition to non-emergency contracts.
Right.
So we may have to get back to you with the specifics. So we have about 150 hotels that were procured under the emergency contracting regulations. We are in the process of, for those that are going to convert to longer-term contracts, converting them to the appropriate long-term non-emergency contracts.
Okay, and then you folks were having a larger conversation earlier about the competitiveness of the contracts and how they're renewed on a varying basis based off of when they were given. Have we looked at, as the administration, or entertained the idea of moving towards like a multi-bid, multi-vendor selected contract, so that we are studying the fees and the amounts we're paying for food? Something Chair Wan was saying earlier, of like, you could be in the same varying degree of a neighborhood, but have 3 different contracts that they're charging the city at 3 different rates for. Why are we not issuing bids or procurements that you can select more than one vendor? You can have a vendor for 3 sites, or 3 different vendors at an X rate. And I feel like we've asked this almost every hearing, but don't get a quiet answer of why we're not moving away from individualized bids versus larger bids to keep a static fee for the same food in different shelters.
Yeah, I mean, there are various ways this can be done, and there are pros and cons of every approach, right? So the way that we do this now, where every shelter is bidding out for that particular shelter, one, it accommodates for the fact that each provider may operate, maybe a provider might operate 5 different shelters. The conditions of all those shelters might be different. Some of them might have food storage, some of them might not have food storage. So their needs and the pricing may differ a little bit for each one of those providers. The other advantage to doing individualized subcontracted bids for every shelter is it opens the door for more vendors, new vendors, localized vendors, smaller vendors, to get into the food space.
But couldn't we have a contract that we selected 10 people?
Absolutely.
That would still open it up for 10 different vendors, but would have a set rate?
That
to
is
pay
a
for
way
food?
that we could approach providing food in the shelter system. It's not the way we currently do it. Right now, we have a full contract with a shelter provider to provide all of the services that individuals need at that shelter. And that includes security is individually bid, food is individually bid, and other services that shelter may need are individually bid, maintenance, general contracting, other things like that. We don't currently have a process where we're setting up a list of pre-qualified vendors for a particular service that every shelter provider has to obtain.
I just want to switch over just quickly on, as we're approaching the budget conversation, whether that's looking at the federal budget, the state budget, the city budget. Do you folks already have a projection or a forecast of the percentage of funding that we receive from federal grants for any of our shelters?
I can't speak directly to the shelters. My colleagues might be able to, but do know that we are monitoring the federal flows very closely and will reflect that in our budgets. It remains obviously a very fluid situation.
Give me a second. Okay, and are there any anticipated freezes on grants federally that we're looking at or anticipating at all? And just in conversations as we're approaching the budget, literally days from now, we're beginning our preliminary budget hearings. Are you folks coming in with any asks to fill any gaps or anticipated gaps?
So right now, DSS has thankfully not faced any funding loss so far, particularly as related to the shelters. The single adult shelter budget is almost 100% city funded with a small amount of funding from the state. There is no federal funding typically in the single adult system, with the exception of a small federal ESG grant, which could obviously be at risk in the future. And then the families with children and the adult family sites are largely claimed based on the public assistance status of the individuals in the shelters. So those who qualify for and are on public assistance, if they are families with children under the 5-year time limit, then they are eligible for TANF, and that has a 50% federal share, 25 state, 25 city, et cetera. So there is some federal funding in there.
Okay.
It is largely from the TANF block grant with a little bit of ESG funding. We have not yet seen any of that funding pulled away.
So just in terms of also, I wanted to ask around some of the FEMA funds. Does the city plan at all to sue the federal government in response to the clawbacks of congressionally approved FEMA funds to compensate for city or increased shelter needs for asylum seekers?
We have.
Great. Okay. And is the clawback at all going to affect the ongoing shelter operations and resources available for food or any of the folks within the shelters?
At this point, we have not received any indication from OMB that there will be any impact to DHS shelters as a result.
It's great that we sued, but I have a question, because in 2 large DHS food contracts that my team reviewed, both for Riviera, EPIN, we could give you the EPIN number, for $32,775,704, and it was modified to an additional $10,787,804,000, and also for Whitson's for $57 million, about, and we could give you the EPIN number for that as well. The contract states that they are partially or fully funded by FEMA. So is that the full, do you believe that's the FEMA ESG grant, or is it the FEMA funds of the $80 million that people have been asking about? And both contracts end in 2026, and since sanctuary shelters have closed or are slated to close, will the city still recuperate this funding, or because it was a multi-year contract, do you believe that it'll just be net neutral or at a low cost of losing money from this federal funding?
So the contracts were written that way to allow for the ability to receive FEMA funding, to make sure that they included the proper language. We did receive some FEMA money that we are now potentially losing, but there is not additional budgeted FEMA money in the DHS food budgets going forward.
Well, my question is, for the way that the contract is written, where it says partially or fully funded by FEMA, is that in reference to the FEMA funding of the $80 million that has been recouped by the federal government?
Yes.
So it is fully from that contract. So were we expecting to get money from them to pay for our food contracts, partially or fully?
Partially. All of our emergency contracts and those contracts that were serving emergency shelters, such as the direct food contracts, Whitson's, Riviera, and Dahl, all had language added to their contracts to allow us to at least potentially reimburse the funding for those contracts using FEMA dollars. They're not being reduced for the loss of FEMA dollars.
Okay, and for the FEMA dollars, is that a reimbursement process as well? Or
Yes.
is- Okay.
This is all about the reimbursement process.
And this means that those reimbursements are no longer an option for the city government for the food.
I'm sorry?
So that means that we will no longer be able to apply for reimbursement for the first year in which the contract was received, or we have to pay out using the FEMA dollars?
We are seeking anything that is eligible for FEMA funding, we are submitting and requesting FEMA reimbursement for. We've done that in the past. We've received FEMA funding, and we will continue to do that into the future as long as FEMA funding is available and we are eligible for that funding. We're going to maximize that funding whenever we can.
And again, I keep on asking the same question. So we just saw in this one contract, Riviera got an additional $10 million to expand their food contract despite all of the complaints. I was physically with Mayor Eric Adams with a horde of residents at Austell Place where they implored him, begged him to stop the contract with Riviera because the food was so disgusting. So what is the process for accountability when people continue to complain that the food is inedible, the food is not halal, the food is not digestible, and they can't survive like this?
Part of what it sounds like is happening here is that there are a lot of perhaps complaints being made, but in order for the agency to actually explore them and document and go into the process, the formal system has to be utilized, which is whether it's, calling the ombudsman, using the code, but making sure that those are substantiated. That's the work of DHS. And so really, if you're hearing them too, I encourage you to maintain that conversation with DHS so that they can be explored and not just raised without the exploration and investigations that are warranted.
And just a quick follow-up to that. I mean, how frequently are you folks monitoring cases that come up in the press, in the media, and then using that to then either do a corrective action, to do a checkup, to do an investigation? I mean, a lot of the things that Chair One is bringing up are not only things that we hear when we go to shelters or when we've had our past hearings, but they're also direct calls to action from local governance on these contracts that we've seen in the press.
In the millions and millions of dollars for the same bad actor. I want to acknowledge we've been joined by Councilmember Nurse, Councilmember Salamanca, and Councilmember Brewer. So if you could give me a clear answer. So help me understand, the QR code surveys, where have they been rolled out? How many people have taken the survey so far? How is this information being aggregated, disaggregated by agency, and then by the vendor itself? As well as how is this becoming public so that we can have a public understanding of who the bad actors are? And I also want to point out, I love the idea that you shared, Executive Director, of the vendor performance and the quarterly shelter repair squad scorecard, but it is, I would like to have it pulled up. I'm not sure if we're able to. I want the public to see that there is no real scorecard pointing out for food. It's only by agencies such as DOHMH. DOHMH does not actually show us the data that the food quality is bad. It breaks it down by DOB, HPD, FDNY, and DOHMH. That is not going to do justice for us to have insight on how their scorecard is or their evaluations for food itself. In addition to that, for the food evaluations, this is done by Shelter Site, which I understand because the food is through a subcontractor, but we also need to be able to see an aggregated view per food vendor, because it's clear that these food vendors who have a monopoly over these subcontracts for millions of dollars, whether it's Regina's, Whitson's, or Riviera's, that they have continued to have food complaints and they continue to get multi-year contracts for millions of dollars, but we need to be able to see across sites what the food quality is.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to defer on the the scorecard, which is the reflection of the routine site review inspections, to my DHS colleagues. I will share, this is, while it is great that we have started the process of requiring feedback across all city agencies, the first step was actually creating the mechanism to do it. So now, and hopefully with your partnership, we'll be able to figure out the ways in which we can share and should share that information. And I'll say, and I know you have kids too, and so it's like, we've got to discern between the likes of I like this, I don't like that, and the things that we can actually do something about. Like the temperature was off, the smell was off. Some of these things are we need to really dig into the substance of the feedback so that we can take corrective action as warranted at the vendor level. So again, in partnership, I think sharing what we are now for the first time required to seek that agency feedback, we agree. We need to figure out a way to communicate that in ways that are helpful and productive to rectifying the system. But as you pointed out on the scorecard, I'm going to defer that to my colleagues.
Yeah, I can't quite see that screen.
This is your first time seeing the scorecard?
It is not my first time seeing the scorecard, but I think I'm going to have to get back to you on the specifics of the scorecard.
Okay, so this is a scorecard that DHS has, and if you look at the first left column, the widest one, that is just the name of the shelter site. And what we'll see is the green second column is an inspection report of DOB, and then the second blue column is HPD, third column is FDNY, the last column is DOHMH, in which we're supposed to presume that that is supposed to be a score that we can look at for mental hygiene, and potentially also food. This scorecard completely omits or erases the importance of food quality in these shelter sites, and we also need to be able to aggregate the data across the city for feedback from these surveys of each vendor. I also have a follow-up question about microbial testing by DOHMH and prescribed period of time for all meals. How is it that somebody like Regina's Caterers, like I brought last time, thanks to my shelter residents, how does the food expire in 2030 from the year 2023? What are we doing about the expiration dates as well as the chemicals and preservatives being used in these shelter foods? What is the food quality control for that?
So if there's thanks for raising that. Let's look specifically at the item. There are a lot of things that we are required to ensure, whether it's sodium, whether it's whole grains, whether it's sugar. Those are elements that we clearly check for. Things around, we have a very strict and soon to be even stricter do not allow category of things that include some particular food additives and things like that. So we'd have to look specifically at that item.
Could you share more about potential reviews of the menus for all of our vendors? I understand that you now have a process for reviewing all the menus before a bid is won. Is that correct? It's before the bid, or is it after?
And perhaps my colleagues can speak directly to the menu review process. From my experience of contracting processes, you have to demonstrate a sample menu, and then when you get into the contracting process, that is when you are working through and agreeing on menus or saying no to something and yes to something. But that seasonal menu review that I referenced in the testimony is something that the DHS nutritionist is reviewing.
Yeah, that was the answer. We get sample menus in the bid packages that are reviewed, but the detailed review of the menu is once the food vendor is on board and ready to serve meals. We review those menus in more detail.
Have you checked people's expiration dates for the meals on why it expires years and years and years out from the day that it's produced? How are we looking at the manufacturer date and the expiration date of our meals that we're serving human beings in these shelters?
So that would not be in the menu review. That would be in the storage and storage and the inspection list that we referenced. The safety, clearly again, when there's food storage that involved everything, they're looking for expired food clearly. And then this is the first time I'm hearing about something like this that you referenced with an expiration date into 2030. I'm not familiar with that, but I'd have to learn more about that.
Okay, we had brought it up in the last hearing, and it continues to be an issue with Regina's Caterers food, where it expires years out from the day that it is produced. Who knows when my food was produced that I'm even being served? That is an extremely, extremely alarming problem. I still don't understand. What is the process for these complaints? So now you're saying, okay, we need to gather the data of feedback of people complaining and there's going to be an investigation. Who is doing the investigation? The 7 people who are doing inspections, are those the investigators? Is it Department of Investigations? What is the process to make sure that there is clear accountability for these bad actors that continue to serve disgusting food?
So it's not the 7 shelter inspectors, but when we receive complaints, they are sent to the shelter operations team at DHS, along with either, depending on whether they are a subcontractor, then they are also sent to the shelter, or if it is a direct food service provider, it would be sent to the team that oversees those contracts for follow-up. All of the complaints that are sent out have to have a response to those complaints, and then our nutritionist and our DHS operations staff and our contract monitoring staff are responsible for noticing whether there are trends across the board of complaints and following up on those.
I think it will be really important that we only serve food that our city employees who work at city agencies will eat for lunch. That will be the same food that we serve in Rikers, the same food that we serve in our nursing homes, the same food that we serve everywhere, so that people in shelters are not eating food that tastes like dog food. Well, I think everyone should have a clear standard of food. Exactly, which is why every single source of food that we're serving should be of a quality that everyone would eat. I'm gonna pass it over to, Chair Farias is gonna ask another question.
Sorry, right before we jump into members, I'm just kind of looking over a bunch of different items. Do we have how many complaints are coming in to you folks? Like either the rate of complaints a month or the actual number of complaints that come in, and then how many get investigated, how quickly? Do we know, can we talk more about that process? Because I feel like we're kind of, there's an omission of numbers, or we're missing, kind of hitting the point of are we seeing maybe it's just 10 complaints a month or quarterly, or are we seeing 10 complaints a week? And is there an inadequacy there of having the appropriate staffing or the investigative response? Can someone on the team talk a little bit about what that looks like?
Yeah, so in calendar year 2024, we had 1,479 complaints about food and meals. I can talk a little bit. I don't have any data with me on how long it took to respond to each one of those complaints.
Do we have a standard? Are we supposed to respond to something in 14 days, 30 days?
Yes, typically the response is due back within 14 days. If it's an egregious complaint, we look for a faster response. But the process is that those complaints come into the Ombudsman's office, they get logged, that's how we know how many there are, and then they get sent out through the IQ system to the shelter staff, the shelter operations staff, to follow up, get that response, and also enter that into the IQ system so that we have a record of the response.
Okay, and so out of the roughly 1,200, I think you said 11 something?
It's almost 1,500.
15, I heard that incorrectly, thank you for the correction. Roughly 1,500 complaints, how many of those ended up with needing either a subcontractor compliance check or some sort of regulatory measure with the larger vendor.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get back to you on the
Okay.
follow-up from each one of those.
So you don't have any actions to resolve the 1,500 complaints out of the 400 shelters that you have?
In the calendar year.
I don't have with me the resolution to each one of those complaints, but there is a record of the resolution for those.
Can't be much of a resolution if the same bad actors continue to get more contracts and are expanding on their contracts. Is there?
Yeah, we'd like to see that data for sure. Okay, I will, Chair, if appropriate, turn it over to Councilmember Aviles.
Good morning. Thank you so much, chairs. You stole a couple of my questions, so I just want to drill in terms of, you mentioned earlier that you provide one contract to the providers and they are responsible for doing all the other subcontracting. So in the context of food, if there is no, I guess one question is, why is there not a pre-qualified list of subcontractors that people could choose from?
That's just not the way we have chose to procure goods and services in the shelters to date.
Okay, so do you have a list of subcontractors and or larger contractors, like the ones my colleague referenced, that are not meeting city standards or have had a number of complaints lodged against them?
We do have two of the food vendors are in process of going under corrective action plan.
Okay, and I mean, this is not unique to certainly DSS. We see this all the time, and a perfect example is in NYCHA, where subcontracting is rife with waste and problems. I would even go so far as potentially criminal activity. How is DSS and any of the agencies engaging and evaluating the subcontractors to ensure that they are above board in doing what they're supposed to be doing?
So before the shelter provider can enter into a subcontract, they need to provide that information to us, and we're looking to see that they have the 3 different bids, and that those bids are appropriate, and that they selected the cheapest and qualified bidder for any service, whether it's food or other services that are being subcontracted.
This is a problem across the city, that the cheapest would actually produce anything of quality. What is the incentive for, how does one manage between the cheapest and just qualified?
But
It feels
also
like it goes straight to
discrepancies.
qualified.
But
I mean,
discrepancies because we have evidence that they choose to not go with the cheapest, who would have provide higher quality, and yet they're going with a higher bidder and expanding them, even though an example like Riviera continues to have complaints of terrible food. Doesn't make sense.
Councilmember, hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for the question, and I think you make a great point. The thing I just want to point out is that the contract privity between the sub is not the city of New York. It's the prime contractor. So it's these prime contractors that are selecting who they're bringing on board as their sub to potentially continue operations or run operations. So I just want to make that clarification about the contract privity between the city of New York and the prime and not the sub. But you make an excellent point.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and it has the same problem, right? The city of New York says, well, we allow them for procurement reasons to sub, which allows them the freedom, right? Because we don't have the capacity to invest in the oversight that this requires given the scale and taxpayer investment, which I think is a very problematic approach because we see what results. An incredible waste of resources, bad contractors and subs over and over and over again with no accountability and no mechanism to be able to understand that there are probably a plethora of subs that are not meeting any of the requirements that we actually, or at least maybe meeting them on paper to the point of halal, but not actually providing appropriate halal services. This is not a new piece of information. What I would like to see the city is not say, well, they're not our contractors. We just worry about the main contractor. We are responsible for it all the way down to when it hits the individual person that we are attempting to serve. So it's not an appropriate answer just to say we're only responsible for the larger contract. It is our responsibility to ensure quality services to the very end, and that's why we're here today. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate you saying that, but we are responsible for the entire chain, and we must hold responsibility. And if we continue to provide contracts to providers that are not doing what they say, and in fact, going against people's religious observance, it's obscene and irresponsible for us to just walk away and say that's not our responsibility. It is not. I forgot what I was gonna additionally ask for, but
We'll give you more time to look.
just one more question. In the context of halal foods, which continues to be, honestly, I can't understand why we can't get this right and why we are not providing full quality halal foods. Do you keep track of how many local halal food providers are in this subcontracting pool, or are they all these big giant corporations from other mysterious places?
The food contracts for the shelters are responsible for providing all the meals at a shelter typically. So not separate contracts for halal specific food.
Do you know of the food contracts that we have, how many of those purveyors are New York-based entities, and what percentage of those are MWBEs?
So all of them are based in New York City or Long Island.
Yes, I can add.
And my colleague will talk about the MWBE.
All right. Thank you so much for that question, Councilmember Velez. So in terms of MWBE participation, we're looking at, on all food contracts, including the prime contracts, 53% utilization by MWBEs, excuse me. And then in terms of subcontracts, MWBE have 56% of subcontracts by volume, totaling almost 100 contracts, and 43% of food subcontracts by value, totaling 112 million in subcontracts.
And when I say New York-based, it means that not just geographically the workers are here, but that the company is a New York-based company.
So aside from them being certified by New York City, the vendors that I've listed, their certification zip codes are also in the boroughs, or as First Deputy Commissioner mentioned, in Long Island, I think 2 of them.
Okay. And I guess I'd love to understand, and this might be part of your reporting back on the halal, is to understand how many subcontractors are claiming to provide halal foods within this mix, and how much are being utilized, and how does that compare to all the other food requests, like the vegan providers and the kosher providers, and what that looks like in terms of an equitable spread across these distincts. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to follow up. You said that they are 53% MWBE.
By volume, in other words, by how many contracts?
Okay, can you get me a number of what that 53%, can you give me a breakdown of how you got to 53% and who from your large vendors and small vendors make up that 53%? I would like a breakdown to understand.
Can certainly provide that in follow-up. I can say that there's a mix of small and a few large vendors.
Do you know who your large vendors are?
The breakdown I don't have. I think it's the Whitson's, R.C. Stillwell, and Regina, maybe. I don't know if you'd consider LIC Com to be a large vendor. I think they've grown a bit, but they certainly started as a small vendor here in New York City, and I'd have to follow up on other...
Okay, because my team just alerted me that, and I know that my colleagues also agree, we have a serious issue with MWBE contracting in the city of New York, and in the New York State, where we have to check to make sure that whoever is registered as the owner of this MWBE actually is working in that MWBE. Because, for example, we just met with Riviera, and then it was clear to my team that it was 2 white men running the business, but it was not clear how there was a woman or a minority who had executive control over this business.
So I would just say, and not to go out of my lane here, if there are any concerns along those lines, those should certainly be directed to the Department of Small Business Services immediately for them to conduct the appropriate investigation.
We'll do for all of the ones that we have been alerted about. And yeah, the follow-up question was regarding MWBE. Some vendors seem to have a president, a CEO, and other officers that are not women or minority but claim to be, and we will report those directly to SBS as well as the state of New York. For my office, we ourselves have submitted now multiple times videos and food of mold in the food served in my shelters, as well as just rotten food, because we see that it is not being, it's just disgusting, and we brought it in the last hearing. In this case, it was by Heart Healthy Foods Incorporated at a DHS shelter. And those complaints, we still have not heard back on what the process has been to make sure that there has been responsibility taken by Heart Healthy Foods for serving moldy food. And they continue to operate and do business in my district. Can you please send us a clear process map of how the investigations will be taking place, how there's going to be accountability for all of these bad vendors? And I also want to acknowledge Councilmember Althea Stevens has also joined us. I'm going to pass it over to Councilmember Farias for a follow-up.
I just have one follow-up question. In terms of subcontractors and criteria, is there mandated by the contract for the large vendor to have a percentage of the services rendered from the vendor themselves that they have to provide? And then what's the criteria that's set for the subcontracting percentage? Like, could I be a large vendor and only do 10% of the administrative work, but then hire X amount of subcontractors? Can you guys walk us through what's that criteria? And if there's either a funding or a total amount that then the subcontractor oversees, and how they have to report back to the large contractor for the city to receive the data or the services rendered?
Sure, happy to. So to my understanding, prime contractors have to have control of the project. That means that typically the majority of they're self-performing the majority of the work. That exact percentage will vary depending upon the type of contract and the general conditions of that contract specifically. For instance, an event producer might sub out a lot of their work, but in the case of food contractors, as we're discussing, it should be the majority of the work. If there's an MWBE goal, that will typically be a pretty significant percentage of that subcontracting, as much as 30%, say. So you wouldn't see them having an MWB goal of 30% and subbing 30% otherwise, because then they'd clearly not be in control of the contractor self-performing. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that somewhat answers it. I mean, I guess the only question that I have that doesn't directly connect back to or wasn't answered is, how does then what's the process of the subcontractor reporting backward to the prime contractor that we then are, with the exhaustive part of them having to monitor and enforce and manage, all of the criteria that they have to check off?
So the subcontractor is bound by the same contract conditions, and Mehek, my colleague here from Mox, will alert me if I'm misspeaking, but my understanding is that they're subject to the same conditions of the contract as the prime. So whatever the prime needs to provide or report on, that same information is being reported by the sub up to the prime and then to the agency.
Okay.
I just also want to follow up to what you had testified about subcontractors, to Councilmember Alexa Vilas's point. This has already been reported, but we want to make sure it's on the record that even if you say that subcontractors are out of our hands, it's with another prime contract, we have clear reports from whistleblowers who have contacted my office as chair of contracts to let us know that the former commissioner of DHS, Gary Jenkins, has told nonprofits and prime contract holders for DHS to say that you need to subcontract with this subcontractor who has been already named as a bad faith actor. So I want to make sure that there seems to be a misunderstanding here where some folks say, subcontractors are not our business, you do what you wish, and there seems to be a very forceful hand where they say you will lose your prime contract if you do not subcontract with this food contractor. I'm going to pass it over to Councilmember Salamanca for his questions.
Thank you, Madam Chairs. Good morning. So first, I was happy to see this list that they provided. That list that was provided, is that a list of all the shelters in the city of New York?
Those were the shelter repair scorecards for the shelters administered by DHS.
Only DHS. Meaning you have not-for-profits that are running these shelters. So you're giving contracts to
It includes all shelters that are under the DHS jurisdiction. It
How many
doesn't
shelters
include
are there in under the DHS system?
Over 400.
All right. So it's safe to say that my district has the highest amount of shelters on that list because I have the highest amount of homeless shelters or transitional housing shelters in the city of New York. So my question here has to be, what is the, I don't know if you have this answer, what is the average cost to house a family in a homeless shelter, in a transitional housing setting?
I don't have that information here with me today.
What is the average cost per person per meal that a provider pays the individual that's providing these services for food?
For food specifically,
Yes.
we do not establish a minimum, maximum, or set food per diem for our contracts. Each contract is bid individually for the shelter, and that per diem is then calculated as a result of that bid. So there is a wide variety of food per diems.
But what's the average? I've heard $8 a day per family, $15. Yeah, what's the average? Is there an average? And the reason I'm asking this is because I'm trying to get, when I found out that some contracts they're paying $8 a day per family, and I'm like, so you're paying $8 a day, are they getting breakfast, lunch, and dinner for $8 a day?
So I can tell you for the three primary food contracts that DHS has, the per diems for those three are $12, $11.50, and $14.25.
Okay, so, all right, thank you for that. And that includes breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
Correct.
And how does the food service provider, what's their system? Do they just come in every day and bring in a day's worth of food, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or do they do it every week, every 2 weeks? How does it work?
It really varies by shelter and by their contract with the subcontractor, and really has a lot to do with their food storage capabilities. Some shelters have little to no storage capabilities. Some shelters can heat up food, others cannot. So a shelter with no food storage and inability to heat food has to get delivery of food once a day, and it needs to be during the meal time that the hot meal is being served.
All right, no, it makes sense. I have some transitional housing setting facilities that do not have a dining setting or kitchen, and so they would have to deliver daily. That makes sense. Beverages are included in this? Water, juice?
Yes.
Coffee? Okay. Quality assurance, how is this monitored in terms of their food? How do you get to this data in terms of the scoring card?
So for the quality assurance, each shelter is responsible for monthly quality review of the food being served at their shelter. They are looking specifically at whether the food is adhering to the menu that was approved by DHS, that the appearance of the food, the taste of the food, and the quantity and size of the portions is largely what the shelters are doing.
So
That
the
happens on a
provider self-monitors themselves and reports back to you?
The provider, the
Meaning-
shelter provider
Yeah.
is monitoring the food quality of the food that they are receiving from the food vendor that they contracted
Alright.
with. For the food that we are directly providing, we are sending staff out to do quality reviews of that food.
All right, so the provider selects the food vendor and the shelter provider, and the shelter provider is responsible for monitoring the food. And you said that they monitor the food they test it themselves, they eat the food themselves?
Absolutely, they're checking temperature, they're checking quantity, they're checking taste. And that is one way of checking food. We also have the DHS staff are going out twice a year, and DOHMH is going out once a year. They're really focused a lot more on food safety, but the sample meals also have to be held for DOHMH to review.
All right. Is there a scorecard for these providers, similar to a restaurant? You know, the food carts that are out there, they need to have a letter grade, right? A, B, C. Does the city, DHS, have something similar to that?
We do have scorecards for our shelters that look at a variety of facility issues. Food is just one component of that.
All right. But is there a particular scorecard or letter grade system for food?
No.
All right. Would it be something you'd be willing to implement?
It's an interesting idea. I would say, again, of the 400 shelters that we're describing here, there's a host of responsibilities that they have. Food is certainly very important, and we would just want to carefully consider how that might be operationalized.
Yeah. Look, I understand that there's a certain budget that is given to the providers and within their contract and how much they can spend per family. And I know within that there's costs, right? They have to pay their overhead, they have to pay their staff, and then there's a portion that's paid for food. My concern is, when you mentioned that they have to find the cheapest, they have to get bids, and then they go with the cheapest option, and it just worries me when we're giving them the cheapest options, the quality of food that we're giving these homeless families. With that, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to ask questions.
Did you get all your answers? Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna pass it over to the legend, Councilmember Brewer.
No legend. I was teaching this morning at Hunter, so I missed some of this. But my question to start with is, my understanding is that at DFTA, there are more people making sure that the process for food goes well than enough staff at DHS. So I want to, maybe you discuss this, but how many people are doing this work at DHS? And I don't know that you could compare it to DFTA, because you probably don't have that data, but how many people are actually doing this work at DHS?
It's a little bit of a hard question to answer because a lot of people have food as at least part of their responsibility at DHS. The shelter operations staff are responsible for monitoring all aspects of the shelter and the shelter operations, including food, and that's the majority of the DHS staff. We have DHS inspection staff. I mentioned earlier that there are 7 of them that are responsible for doing the facility inspections.
I think it's the 7 that is of concern compared to, apparently, I don't know this, but DFTA has many more. So are you requesting in new needs? Do you not feel that you need more of that staff?
Per Chair Wan's question earlier about whether we're actually getting all of our inspections done, I believe we are, but if we are not, then that would be a place where we would need to ask for
Can you
more
get back
staff,
to
but
us
that's not my
compared to
understanding.
what DFTA is versus DHS? Could you get back to us with those numbers?
Sure, we can work with our colleagues at DFTA for what their staffings are.
Okay, my understanding is people don't feel it's enough. Now, the second issue is more complicated. I must admit, just like the chair, I am a huge supporter of Rethink, huge. I would love to write a contract that says only Rethink can get any of these contracts. That's how I would do it. Now, I know that's not legal, but you can write RFPs that say you need local vendors, you need local restaurants, you need to support our folks who are in the neighborhoods, et cetera. Any thought of doing that? I would just get rid of all those vendors and go to Rethink.
Councilmember, what I will share is that Rethink, earlier I spoke about a new project that the DHS team with Ray is leading, which is to build a pipeline of new vendors, and Rethink will be tapped to be able to talk about how they did what they did, which is a change in their business model.
They'll
and
do it.
all the things necessary to make sure that you're successful.
Okay. My question then is, right now, and tell me if I'm wrong, I think they have subs. They have H&H where they will be phased out like everybody else. So are people who are working at H&H, it may just be Rethink, I don't know. Are they moving over to DHS? I know what you're talking about is a good idea, but it's going to take time.
Yeah.
How would a vendor like Rethink, if there is one like them, be a prime and not a sub? How could that work at DHS? In other words, you've got your nonprofit, I got that. But how could literally something like a Rethink model, Rethink quality, be the sub, or whatever the term is, as opposed to some of the ones that you're talking about? When are all these contracts up? Is that something that's happening soon at DHS? Is it staggered?
I believe that the direct contracts expire in fiscal 26 or end of fiscal 26. So
That's now.
So
Very
as
soon.
as the plan that is put in place to rebid those comes out, they will certainly be considering what we've learned over the past few years and take the appropriate action.
Okay. Will that RFP be written differently, or will it be written the same, or you don't know yet?
I don't know.
Is that something you could consider so that the local businesses could, in fact, whether it's Rethink or somebody else, be that kind of a model?
We are working across all agencies to look at contract language and learn and take our experiences over the last 5 years and make changes as appropriate.
Okay. Now, this is not directly food, probably more general, but apparently H&H does pay on time and DHS does not. Is that something that can be worked out?
DHS, we at the Department of Social Services, in partnership with our colleagues at MOX and MONS, are working hard to bring all of our contracts and contract payments up to date and have them be on time, closer to on time.
Is there anything we can learn from H&H, or is that just a different animal or person or entity?
It's a different agency with a different process and different contracting rules that they have to follow.
Okay, something to think about. And then just finally, my question would be, when you are thinking about doing things differently, what's the process for different written RFPs? What is that something that is done with just internal rules and regulations? Is it consultation with the city council, et cetera? How do you go about writing a new RFP that might make more sense than the food that is being delivered? The problem is, we all know, it's just going in the garbage. And so the question is how we can do this differently. You understand that. I'm not saying you don't. But how do you go about writing an RFP this differently? Obviously, the time is of the essence because 2/6 is around the corner.
I will share, the partnership that we have with agencies, including MOX. I referenced earlier the desire to start to do more best value bids and proposals is in place. It requires a lot of change, making sure that everything is upholding the law, of course, but looking at things.
I'm not too big on the law if it doesn't work, but go ahead.
But looking at things, in addition to lowest price, how we're able to look at things like quality, like capacities. Those are all areas that we're exploring, and the team at DSS is partnering with us on that.
Okay, can you get back to us on the time frame and how that is going so that it is clear that it's actually happening? Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to give an example in the food space that's not directly related to DHS, but where we at DSS worked in very close partnership with MOFP, for example, to change the way we deliver food to our food pantries through the Community Food Connections program. And that's an example where we in partnership worked very closely. We developed a new model, and wrote a new RFP that would embrace that model and bring that new model to the city.
No, I appreciate that. I think it's not easier, because nothing is easy, but that's a little bit easier than dealing with, you know, whatever, 53,000, 67,000, I don't know, and with contractors that are also challenging. So this is a big project. It absolutely has to happen, because not just that people need to be fed correctly, we're wasting money, it's going right out the door. And so the question would be, get it right, and we have the opportunity to do that with all this great food in the city of New York and in the upstate community. So I don't know, this is a great topic. Thank you for doing it. New RFP, include the way that Rethink thinks. Thank you very much.
I'm going to pass it over to Chair Riley for his questions.
Thank you, Madam Chairs. Just want to get clarity on the MWB question. Did you say 53% of the contracts go to MWBs?
By contract number, correct.
By contract, and you don't have the breakdown of
Who's getting what? I don't have that with me, but we can follow up with that.
and you could provide that. My next question, I don't know if you stated this, why. It says right here that DHS has 3 direct contracts worth $160 million. Who are those contracts to?
So those are to DAL, I believe. I don't have their formal business name, but DHALL, and I can follow up with the DAL Hospitality, sorry, thank you. Whitson's Culinary Group and RC Stillwell are the 3.
Is there a reason why it's just 3 providers? Is there some type of formula why it's 3 providers?
I would have to defer to our agency chief contracting officer who constructed that bid and decided on that format. I know often having some redundant, you want to have more than one, obviously, so you have redundancy, that's one factor. And then you also want the benefits of volume, so that's another reason to aggregate. I can't speak to how that's being structured going forward, but I can follow up with more information if you...
And after the providers get the contracts, they're able to subcontract them out to different vendors.
Correct.
How are they doing outreach to kind of get different vendors, or how can vendors get, I guess, under these bids?
That's an excellent question, and thank you for that. Whitson's was recently certified. Before that point, they had a 30% goal on their contract. So if those 3 contracts had not...
30% for
MWBE goals. So if those contractors were all, let's say, non-MWBE contractors, they would have a goal, a participation goal on their contracts.
Why wasn't the format created that the MWBs could just apply directly for?
They can. And in this case, they did, and they won. So 2 of the 3 were MWBE prime contractors. In terms of what we're doing to create those inroads, like, we're really committed to building a pipeline between not just our MWBEs and our provider community, but our MWBEs and our prime contractor community. So in the last 3 years, we've had 4 matchmaking events where we bring representatives from the providers and from our prime contractors, and we sit them at tables. And then we bring MWBEs who...
Do you do this annually, every year?
At least annually. We've moved to twice a year this year. And so we bring MWBE representatives in to sit across the table from them and do 10-minute interviews, which is a lot more time than you're ever going to get in a networking event, right?
You give the council some information on those, because we have a lot of amazing businesses within our district.
Please send them. To me personally, and I'll work with my team to invite them to these events and bring them into our pipeline. Absolutely.
Can we follow up after this?
Absolutely, yeah. And just a note, we're looking at 1 out of 5 vendors who attend these events later going on to win a contract. So we believe this is working, and we're really excited for our partnership with Mayor's Office of Food Policy, who's been helping us to boost this event.
All right, thank you.
Thank you,
Madam Chair.
Can you help me understand from Mox why the food contracts are not going to the lowest bidder, as your colleagues have been testifying that it's supposed to go to the lowest bidder?
It could vary depending on the procurement vehicle that the agency chose. Here, if you guys did it as a competitive seal proposal, these contracts, or a best value bid, then agencies have the ability to choose more than just the lowest bid. So it depends on the procurement vehicle that the agency initiated in their process.
Can you share with me what qualifies as the best value bid and why organization would be awarded at a higher value instead of a lower bidder who has had no complaints about food quality, yet you're continuing to award people who have food quality complaints at a higher price over someone else who, like, for example, Rethink Foods that bid at a lower price and has had great history of providing really great food and adding to our local economy by bringing in local vendors.
I'm going to defer to the contracting agency that chose these vendors to award with.
Right, so I think you're talking about the shelter providers are not choosing the lowest bid for their subcontractors, right? So typically that would only be for reasons of non-responsiveness, finding of non-responsibility, or other vendor compliance issues as to why they wouldn't be choosing the lowest
What
bidder
if
in
the
those
other
cases.
lowest bidder had no non-responsive or compliance issues like Rethink Foods?
Right, I don't have a good answer to that question because it shouldn't be happening. And if you have examples of that
Yes,
you
I
can
will
share with us, we
definitely
would
email
like
it to you for
follow up with it.
investigation. For the 2024 Food Standards Compliance Report, noted that relevant agencies updated the way that you conduct nutritional analysis on menus and food served by contracted food vendors. Can you describe the new process and how it differs from your previous process?
The new process of nutrition compliance? So we don't have a new process yet. Typically, each agency is responsible for capturing a sampling of menus, analyzing them, and reporting. What we are looking to do beginning next fiscal year is put in place a citywide software program that would be able to analyze all menus with much more regularity and be able to analyze, like, not just more menus, but with more frequency, so that we can say not just a spot check of 2 weeks times over the course of a year, but look at increasing the frequency of menu analysis and helping agencies with a software program universally to be able to do that.
Okay, we're going to have a lot of follow-ups from this hearing. I'm really disappointed that a year later, there still is no clarity on how we keep vendors accountable for the terrible food that they continue to feed our people at taxpayers' expense and the millions and millions and millions of dollars, along with other data that we've requested today. We're gonna move on to public testimony. So now I dismiss the panel and the administration, and I now open the hearing for public testimony. I remind members of the public that this is a government proceeding and that decorum shall be observed at all times. As such, members of the public shall remain silent at all times. The witness table is reserved for people who wish to testify. No video recording or photography is allowed at this time from the witness table. Further, members of the public may not present audio or video recordings as testimony, but may submit transcripts of such recordings to the Sergeant-at-Arms for inclusion in the hearing record. If you wish to speak at today's hearing, please fill out an appearance card with the Sergeant-at-Arms and wait to be recognized. When recognized, we'll have 2 minutes to speak on today's oversight hearing on food quality in New York City shelters. And if you have written statement or additional written testimony you wish to submit for the record, please provide a copy of that to the Sergeant-at-Arms. You may also send written testimony to testimony@council.nyc.gov within 72 hours of close to this hearing. Audio and video recordings will not be accepted. For in-person panelists, please come up to the table once your name has been called, and now I will call the first person in the panel. Allison Wilkie, Matt Jozowak, Barbara Hughes. Hello, we can start with you.
Yep, good morning, and Thank you, Chairs Wan and Chairs Farias, for holding this hearing. My name is Allison Wilkie, and I'm the Director of Government Affairs and Strategic Campaigns at the Coalition for the Homeless, and I'm providing testimony today both on behalf of the Coalition and the Legal Aid Society. We are the court and city-appointed monitors of the DHS shelter system, which that number of sites does vary, but right now is actually about 500 sites, not 400 sites. One of the most frequent complaints that we get both from shelter residents and from our monitoring staff is about the quality of food in shelters. The complaints range from lack of dietary accommodation to things being overcooked to spoiled food. I mean, the whole range of things that the administration testified that they have rules or guidelines or processes about are the exact things that we get complaints about. I'd like to focus a little bit first on reasonable accommodations. You know, our staff, both at Legal Aid and the Coalition, spend weeks and months trying to get compliance with granted reasonable accommodations. These are people who have provided medical documentation. They have a granted request, but there's really two problems. That one, either the shelter fails to make their request to the vendor to get the right dietary requirement, or the vendor just doesn't provide it. And I'd like to read a quote from a shelter resident who wanted me to share this with the council. Her name is Cassie. She said, "I haven't been able to get the appropriate food to control my cholesterol. After 2 heart attacks, my doctor ordered me to follow a plant-based diet. I have an approved reasonable accommodation, but I still can't get the food I need. The only milk they serve to go with the cereal in the morning isn't plant-based. The menu says they're going to serve oatmeal, which would be good for me, but we never get oatmeal. My health has gotten worse while living in shelter. The shelters never serve salad or fresh vegetables. My doctors are concerned about my uncontrolled cholesterol, but I can't do anything about it because they won't give me plant-based meals even though they're supposed to." I've included a few photos in my testimony that were taken in recent weeks that I'd just like to point out to you. The one on page 3 shows what is supposed to be vegetarian paella with mixed vegetables. You can see that it's maybe some carrots and a fried object and some rice. It is definitely not what it says, and this is a problem that people have in trying to understand what they're eating, is that the labels on the meals or the menus that are posted do not match what people are receiving. I'd just like to say also, if you look really closely there, the calories for that meal listed on the label are 184. That is not enough for a meal. Same thing in other photos. On page 4, there's a photo, the label says it's a hard-boiled egg. It looks like maybe a pancake if I'm being generous. And then also the problem people have is actually getting, when they get a special meal, getting like nutritional equivalency. So the photo on page 5 is supposed to be a vegan meal. It is vegetables and white rice. That is all that is in there. There's no protein. So even though we have all of these guidelines in place, we have these standards, they are not being followed. And this is just one of like many complaints that we get that include, you know, for shelters where the meals are delivered, they deliver lunch and dinner at the same time, like at lunch, and then the dinner just sits out. It's not refrigerated, it just sits out for 5 hours. So there's a number of issues that I appreciate the council holding this hearing, but there's just a real lack of accountability on making sure that all of these rules and standards that are in place are actually followed.
Thank you so much. I have a question. Do you have information on which shelters these are from and who the food provider is?
I can
for each
follow
one?
up and get that from you, for you. I don't know that off the top of my head, which ones.
Okay,
But
if
we
you
do get
can-
frequent complaints with the same shelters that you've been mentioning, Regina, Riviera, Whitson's, like people complain most about some of
because
those.
it's clear that there is no accountability process. We're gonna have to take matters into our own hands and collect the data ourselves, as well as the pictures, the food, and make sure that there is accountability in the next year before we have another hearing about this topic. Do you have any other questions? Okay, next panelist.
Good afternoon. I just want to thank the council, Councilmember Wan, Majority Leader Farias, Councilmember Brewer for taking the time to host yet another hearing on food quality at the shelter system. And also, yes, I agree, there are over 500 shelters. And we did a little math while we were waiting back there. It would take 2 years for 7 people to inspect every single shelter if there was 10 hours worth of work to do at each shelter. So 7 people is clearly not enough. That's the main focus of our recommendation today, is that there needs to be, the shelter system cannot police itself. There needs to be at least quadruple the staff within DHS or DFTA to go and review independent shelters. Currently, our understanding is that there's only 2 people at Department of Homeless Services that are overseeing menus and food. And the 7 people that were mentioned were more for operational efficiency and things like that. Our recommendation is that since the shelter system has nearly doubled since the migrants started coming to New York, that they have sizable budget increase where they can focus on food quality as among other several issues. Rethink wants to be clear that this is an upstream issue that philanthropy is spending hundreds of millions of dollars on every single year. While I was waiting to testify, I received a list of over 8 sites that Rethink, in your district, Majority Leader, Rethink has to spend over $800,000 a year providing extra meals to these sites because the food quality is so bad. This is a problem that's continued, and what our recommendation is that there's at least a third-party investigation into this. It seems that the council and the city are very, very far apart on food quality and where this is at, and we are asking, please, if there's a third party, Rethink would be happy to do it, or any other party or Department of Investigations to actually look into this issue, because every single day we are wasting millions of dollars, and every single day the food quality is putting people in hospitals. Thank you so much for your time.
Good morning. Well, it's afternoon now, and I've been here listening since the beginning, and it's been difficult to listen to. My name is Barbara Hughes. I testified at a hearing recently and actually almost spoke the same script. I'm the executive director of City Bee Kitchens. We're an employment social enterprise, which is part of Project Renewal. We've been operating since 1995. We're a small vendor. We compete with the big 3. We can't compete with them because our costs are too high. The poor food quality in the shelters leads to food waste. It does. Think about it. If you had an unappetizing meal, what would you do? You would go out and find means to find food another way. And City Bee Kitchens, we take pride in crafting quality dishes with diverse menus for shelter residents. Our one large client, we have difficulty competing, so we have one large client, Breaking Ground. We do 7 sites for them, also provide people to serve the food, so we're creating jobs also, because they are committed to our mission and went to the city for new needs so that they could afford our services. We care about the food we create, and we care about our staff. We are paying above minimum wage to our staff. Many of them are graduates of our culinary training program. But using the lowest price catering options means that the quality of food in shelters will continue to be an issue. Additionally, in order to improve food quality in shelters, nonprofit providers must be paid fairly and in a timely manner. Unfortunately, the city's been chronically late to pay nonprofit providers for our work, so that's a crisis for us too. We hope that you'll prioritize social enterprise caterers like ours over for-profit contracts. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can you just put on record who the big 3 are that you're referring to?
Pardon me?
The big 3 that you're competing with?
Regina, Whitson's, and what's the other one? Riviera.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
No further questions. Thank you so much for coming to testify. Oh, Councilmember Brewer has a question.
So all 3 of you testified, I think, suggestions that could be made. My question for Rethink is, you mentioned not only needing 7 people plus 2 and many more. Do you think, what would be the number that maybe would be able to be sure that the menu that is printed is one that they actually get, which is not true from what the Coalition for the Homeless stated? And then in addition, how do you think you could, or Project Renewal, know your program? You're so dressed up, I didn't recognize you, Barbara, I'm just telling you.
Thanks.
The issue is, what is the mechanism that you could be the prime contractors? How could that work? How could the city make sure that happens?
On the first part, you know, what we sincerely appreciated about working with Health and Hospitals was their ability to learn over time. And they changed and they adapted and they grew. And as food quality was an issue in the beginning, they changed, they found halal vendors, they listened to recommendations, and they grew. I think we should look at Health and Hospitals and the way that they approach food. They only have 4 open HERCs right now, and 2 of them are closing. And look at the way that they measured and managed food quality and food waste. It is completely different than DHS and DSS, completely different, night and day. I believe that now there is actually, because there's been more of a light on this, there is more of an opportunity, and we'd be willing to partner and you know, go after some of these bigger contracts and you know, combine our cash flow to be able to you know, execute them.
Okay.
I mean, some of our graduates.
Use the mic, Barbara. You pull the mic over, yep.
Some of our graduates work for Matt at Rethink, and we think we have a better way of doing things. And I'll mention, it's a partnership that we have with Breaking Ground. We meet, we discuss, we have quality control. Someone goes out and looks at their sites, makes sure everything is okay. There's a different way to do this.
Okay, and I believe all of your sites is scratch cooking too, Project Renewal in general. So big difference. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and we'll follow up with you if you can get us, we'll follow up with H&H to really understand what the process has been to evaluate food waste and food quality to make sure that we have a blueprint of how DHS should be operating. Thank you so much for speaking on the panel. We'll follow up if we have any questions. The next panel is going to be Adama Ba, Janet Jackson, and Latoya Meters. Okay, we could start with you. Yes.
Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. My name is Janet Jackson, and I'm here today to speak about the serious issues of the food quality in New York City shelters. I lived in the shelters for approximately 10 years and had to deal with lots of issues with the food. Thankfully, I'm out of the shelter, but I'm here to speak on behalf of my experience and on behalf of members of the Coalition for the Homeless Client Advisory Group. The fact is that all the food issues that I experienced over the total of 10 years of being in and out of the shelters still exist today. The problems I hear are the same problems I had, and I'm hearing the same thing from other people today. Nothing has changed, nothing in 10 years. I lived in several shelters, all of them have food issues. At one shelter, there was only one microwave for the whole building to heat up their food. When I worked at night, I had to choose between going hungry or eating cold, unrefrigerated, left out, saved food from earlier in the day. At other shelters, staff leave frozen food sitting out on the tables all day, which is unsafe. People got sick from this food because it wasn't properly stored. Too often, food was so overcooked that it was barely edible. And the coalition provided a picture of the microwave food, the rubbery on the side, that's from being overcooked. But this is nothing compared to the problem faced by people who have special dietary needs or medical conditions. People, including myself, go through all the work of getting a doctor's letter so they can get reasonable accommodation requests granted. But that's when the real struggle begins. Shelter ignore reasonable accommodations for medically necessary diet. I suffer from diabetes, kidney disease, and cardiac disease. I needed a special diet. They didn't provide it. I asked, they didn't provide it. And it's not just me, there's a strong lack of accountability in shelters, and it's killing people today. There's no fresh food, no healthy food, and nothing has changed. It's time for a real change. Thank you for letting me speak.
Hello, everyone. My name is Adam Abba, Executive Director of Africana. Our focus is on Black immigrants and Black diaspora. I'm here today because we cannot ignore the fundamental issues affecting thousands of Black Muslims in New York City shelters and the lack of halal food. Let me be clear, what is being served halal is nothing more than rice and vegetables. And while that might be enough to check a box, it is not enough to meet the needs of our communities. What's worse, we don't even know who the vendors are. We don't know if they're actually certified halal, if they understand what halal truly means, or if they simply stamped a label to win a contract. And far too long, when the city talks about halal food, they automatically assume it means South Asian or Arab. Black Muslims, Black Africans, African American, and many Black people across the diaspora who practice Islam are completely erased from the conversation. We are Muslim too. We built mosques, we established communities, we fed our people long before there were city contracts. Our food, our traditions, our dignity matters just as much. But beyond the neglect, let's talk about the insult. Contracts for halal foods are being given to people who do not belong to our religion, do not come from our communities, and do not understand our culture. That would never happen for other faith groups. Imagine if I, a Black Muslim, was awarded a contract to provide kosher food for the Jewish communities without truly understanding the dietary laws. Imagine if I was given a contract to supply communion wafers to churches with no regards for their religious significance. It would be offensive, it would be unacceptable, and it would never happen. So why is this happening to us? Why is our faith, our food, our dignity up for profit, handed to those who neither respect nor serve us? We demand change. African migrants and Black Muslims should not have to beg for what is already their right. We need real oversight, we need real accountability, and most importantly, we need real halal food prepared by our people for our people. Black people dignity is not negotiable. African dignity is not disposable, and we will not stop until our people get the respect and the service they deserve. And most importantly, I want to add, every year in Ramadan, we have to do a fundraiser just to get halal food to our communities. And this year, we'll have to do another one.
Good day, Majority Leader Amanda Farris, Contract Committee Chair Julie Wan, and members of the Council. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Latoya Metters, and I am the founder and CEO of Collective Fare. We are dedicated to ensuring that New Yorkers experiencing food insecurity receive high-quality, nutritious, and culturally relevant meals, because food is more than just subsistence. It is dignity, health, and belonging. For years, I've worked with food insecure communities, and the one thing is clear: too much food being served in shelters go to waste. Not because people don't need it, but because it doesn't reflect their cultural backgrounds or nutritional needs. When meals are unfamiliar, lack seasoning, or don't align with dietary traditions, they go uneaten, wasting food, resources, and opportunities to nourish. Without accountability, we cannot fix what we can't measure. At Collective Fare, we've proven that a different model is possible. During the pandemic, we delivered over 1.2 million meals in collaboration with Rethink Foods, and hundreds of thousands more that continue to this day. Through the asylum response and beyond, these were meals that people actually ate because they were fresh, thoughtfully prepared, culturally relevant, and competent. We literally go to the shelters and find out who the people are because it's important for us. And I ad-libbed that part. By working with local food providers, we've reduced waste, improved quality, and restored dignity to food access. If the city truly wants to feed New Yorkers and not just fulfill contracts, it needs to prioritize local, community-based food providers who understand the people they serve. That means serving meals that reflect cultural and dietary needs so people actually eat them. It means holding vendors accountable for the quality and nutrition through feedback and oversight. And it also means investing in local businesses and nonprofits that create jobs and reinvest into community, which strengthens New York City's economy. Our partnership with Rethink Food has shown that this model works. We've scaled meal distribution while maintaining nutrition, taste, and dignity. This is not only about fixing a broken food system, it's about building a better one through innovative and holistic practices. The city has a choice: continue wasting meals and resources, or invest in a system where every meal served is a meal that heals, nourishes, and respects those who receive it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming to testify. The next panel is going to be Shanna McCormick, Chloe Breyer, and Masoon Rafiq Umar. Okay, we'll start with you.
Good morning, or good afternoon, Majority Leader Amanda Farias and Contracts Committee Chair Julie Wan. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of Intro 0905-2024. My name is Shana McCormick, and I represent Rap for Bronx, a community-driven organization dedicated to enhancing food access and nutritional outcomes in New York City. Our work spans partnerships with faith-based groups, senior centers, shelters, NYCHA developments, and other community-based organizations. We've proudly assisted in establishing pantries, subsidizing food access, and meeting residents where they are by providing prepared meals in partnership with Rethink, both rescued and farm fresh produce, and essential pantry staples. As we all know, food insecurity is not a one-size-fits-all situation, nor should it be treated as such. I would like to extend a special thank you to the Majority Leader for steadfast support in allocating funds to help with food access in her district, which is the very community that we serve the most, including subsidizing meals in shelters. Our on-the-ground experience has shown that when food quality issues arise at sites, residents often turn to local pantries and community-based organizations for better, more nutritious options. This situation not only duplicates efforts, but also escalates costs and compromises health outcomes. Many working New Yorkers already face the challenge of stretching their budgets to cover rent, transportation, childcare, and other expenses. This often forces them to compromise on food quality, resorting to fast food or lower quality options. In contrast, locally prepared, culturally relevant, ready-to-eat meals provide a dignified alternative. Such meals are critical for individuals without access to full kitchens, those juggling multiple jobs with limited time and energy to prepare nutritious meals. Over the past 5 years as a partner of Rethink, we've seen their efforts flourish into an ecosystem that we're proud to be a part of, prioritizing community well-being, but also bolstering local businesses. Through this partnership, we've helped deliver close to 1 million meals from neighborhood restaurants, ensuring that local businesses thrive, local hires like our longstanding driver, Dwayne, receive fair wages and benefits, and consumers have access to quality, nutritious meals. The Intro 0905 mandates that food service contractors with $100,000 or more are required to fill out surveys based on a quarterly basis. This requirement will ensure that the voices of our community members are heard and that these insights will hopefully lead to improvements in food quality and health outcomes. A critical step in reducing duplicate efforts, ensuring dollars are spent on food that is being consumed and not being disposed of. Thank you for your consideration and time to speak. We believe this is the beginning, and hopefully the city continues to invest in a model like this to benefit for all.
Thank you. Next is Reverend Chloe Breyer.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak in favor of intro number 0905. I'm going to speak today from the perspective of the Interfaith Center of New York and the focus on cultural competent food as a one way of approaching or supporting the diverse religious observances of our city. So I'll take a rather looking back or a wider view. So the Interfaith Center of New York has worked for and with grassroots immigrant faith leaders for the last 25 years. Civics training for grassroots faith leaders has been part of what we do, and we do that because we believe this strengthens New York civil society overall. Public accommodations for the newest community members and for New York's diverse community members help the people of this great city understand themselves as New Yorkers. So small administrative changes that allow for the, particularly the religiously diverse practices of members of the city, be it extending jury duty, be it public school holidays, be it halal and kosher in New York's public schools, these make a huge difference. So fast forward then to 2022 when buses started arriving in our city from from Texas, and we began working with the HERC system and heard a huge number of complaints about the food, many of which have been, spoke about today. If you fast forward again just to last year, to echo Adama Ba, Black migrants who were residing in shelters around the city but spending a lot of time in mosques in the Bronx were trying to celebrate Ramadan, but doing so without adequate food security. They were fasting all day and breaking those fasts at mosques with something as simple as a loaf of bread. The issue was that the food provided by the shelters, while recognizing it was Ramadan, delivered all the food for a 24-hour period at one time. And so they were looking for other places. We, the Interfaith Center, worked with other partners to create 54,000 meals that were all resourced by local, to Councilmember Brewer's point, local restaurants. So a huge outpouring by the community. The money went to local restaurants, and then iftar meals were provided. So in conclusion, the accommodations of religious practices for the new and other members of our city is not just about the interests of the individual, but also serve for the long-term cohesion and strength of our great city. So
thank you. We also have Imam Rafiq.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Imam Mansour Rafiq Umar. Oh, there we go. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Imam Mansour Rafiq Umar. I am the president of Halal Watch. We are a halal activist organization, halal oversight, and we work directly with government. We work with Governor Kathy Hochul. I am actually an appointee on her executive committee for interfaith matters and concerns. So our organization is actually the first Halal Watch organization in New York State. We opened our doors in 1985. We work to ensure that the consumer, the halal conscious consumer, receives what they're looking to get. What they're purchasing, it should be exactly what they're expecting. So our job is to make sure that there's a proper paper trail and a proper line from farm to fork. So if you're purchasing something or you're receiving something, then that is halal. We want to make sure that that is actually halal. The same sort of oversight needs to happen in government. It needs to happen with the shelters. It needs to happen with the schools. We work directly with the Department of Education for all of the halal options and halal meals that go into the schools. We oversee them. We check to ensure that that is taking place. We work with other companies as well. We could tell you the companies here, because we have a database, because we have technology backing all of our systems, we can tell you when they've been audited, when they've been checked, when the last visitor or the last halal product has been in that facility, because of the fact that we have that sort of oversight and that sort of technology to support it. So our job is to make sure that that is the case. We want to help the institutions. We want to help the government to get this right. Because at the end of the day, it's about the same principle applies with restaurants, right? The customer is always right. At the end of the day, if the customer is not happy, you guys are not happy. If the customers aren't happy, you guys have a big headache. Our job is to make sure at least the one portion of halal, that issue is mitigated and managed. I came all the way from Albany, New York, just to have 2.5 minutes. So I hope everyone really does take this seriously, because growing up as a youngster, not having halal options, this is a passion for me. So it's a passion for our organization and everyone involved. We want to make sure that if it says it's halal, it really is halal. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And hats off to all the other organizations.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Our last panel is Jeanette Lugo, Christopher Leon Johnson, and Sharon Brown.
Hello, good afternoon, Chair Juan and Chair Farias. My name is Christopher Leon Johnson, and I'm here to speak. In support of, we need better food in the shelters. That's the problem. I'm not homeless, but I give my comments to the people that are homeless in the city of New York that could tolerate that type of food. But the truth of the matter fact is that where was Vocal New York when today of the biggest homeless advocacy organization in the New York City to speak on behalf of these bills? Oh yeah, I forgot. If it doesn't benefit homeless sex offenders, then they won't advocate on behalf of it. All right, but let's go forward. Let's keep this real. The reason they put this food in shelters, these unhealthy foods in the shelter, is to keep the people sick, because then they become guinea pigs for the hospital industry and the medical industry. And the medical industry and the hospital industry love using homeless people because they are highly prone to getting diseases because of the smells in the home. I used to work in a homeless shelter as a security supervisor, and I know the smell is horrible. I wouldn't want my worst enemy living in a homeless shelter unless they have to. That's why people live on the streets. The truth of the matter fact is they want these people to keep on being sick with these foods, and everybody knows these foods are GMO foods. They want people to be sick so they can be used as guinea pigs for the hospital and medical industry, especially when it comes to psychiatric pills. You could eat those food and you feel sick, and you go to the wrong doctor that is funded by the city council. They will say, oh, you're mentally ill, and they'll put you on these pills so they can make you a zombie for the rest of your life. So I know nothing here is going to get changed with the food selections and this stuff, because the city council refused to address anything, because everybody knows that the biggest nonprofits that gets all the contracts, they're behind this stuff. They get funded from the developers, they get funded from the hospitals, they get funded from Big Pharma like Pfizer and Moderna, and what happens is the people stay oppressed. So look, I know this committee, this is only a part of what's happening, the transparency was going on here, but unless you change, you really say, look, we're going to get rid of these GMO foods and bring in real healthy foods without the approval of the Big Pharma and Big Medical, then I know I'm going downstairs to the rally, see what it's about.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
You can go since she's still writing. You can go.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for. I think so.
Is this better? Okay, cool. All right. I want to first say thank you so much for having this forum. It is very important to everyone in East New York and Brownsville. My name is Jeanette Lugo. I am the NYPD Clergy Liaison of PSA2, which services East New York and Brownsville. And I do community affairs. So as a liaison to the community, we receive so many phone calls from the shelters. And the phone calls that we receive are something that this community could definitely help us out with. There are fights about food, if you can believe that, in New York City, right? Just food alone. It'll be things like that people go into the shelters, and when we'll get phone calls, people need food because either it was bad, it was received in all kinds of ways. They said that they would send 200 meals. Instead, there were only 50 meals for 300 people, and so on and so forth. When people are in the shelter system, they're already at their lowest. They're already at their lowest. They already have a situation in which, I go into a situation where I see these people and they need to get the services that they need. For them not to be able to get the food that they need so that they can move forward and get the services that they need to get out of the system is inhumane. And so that's why what you guys are doing is very important. For us to have to call a person like Rethink, which is an amazing organization, to help us with something. Thank you.
Finish your last thought.
Okay.
Your last sentence.
For us to have to call Rethink to help us with situations that deal with the shelter is just, it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
You know what I mean? Let's give the resources to people that are willing to help the people.
Yes.
And have something in place that can make us be able to do something better so that people can live a better quality of life.
Agreed. Thank you so much. And our last panelist?
Hello, my name is Sharon Brown. As I testify, I would just say, remember Israel, release the hostages, let Yahweh's people go. Okay, there is enough money to pay for people to go directly into apartments and houses. There's been a fight over the shelters over and over food. I was here at a hearing before, and they talked about how horrible the food was. And I thought something would be done then. And to my chagrin, we're here again talking about how horrible the food is. So not only are the shelters keeping people in shelters, when they have the money to pay for the shelter beds, they probably are at astronomical rates. They could put people directly into the homes and pay that money for apartments and houses. The food situation, because I was here the last time and it did not get cured then, and it was not a major thing that people went in and made sure the food was better, until they take them out and put them directly into apartments, which I'm expecting them to start doing. They need to give them individual refrigerators in the shelters. They have space. They can get small ones with a freezer in it. They can also, along with the refrigerator, they can give them some kind of food stamps or whatever, and they can also give them hot food allowance, restaurant allowance. I was here the last time. Again, I'm reiterating, it did not change. So we need to press them to give them refrigerators and make sure they can get increases in whatever financing they need and get restaurant and hot food allowance ASAP. Thank you.
Thank you
Remember
so much.
Israel.
Thank you. You're dismissed. And we're now going to go to online testimony. One second. Okay, do I just call them or do I have to read anything else? Okay. Okay, now we're going to hear from a representative from Malacca. You are now unmuted. If you could take yourself off mute and testify.
You may begin.
Good afternoon. I'm testifying on behalf of Rana Abdul Hamid and on behalf of Malika. Our organization didn't initially set out to focus on asylum work, but when we began working with asylum seekers through IDCNY, we quickly learned how urgent the food issue was. One story that particularly stays with me is the story of a Sudanese woman who was so malnourished that she couldn't breastfeed her child. She had been receiving food that was not only subpar, but also not halal. For her, this was not just an inconvenience, but it was a direct conflict with her faith. Halal food is a religious obligation for Muslims. It's not a matter of preference or choice. Thanks to the support of Councilmember Wan's office, we've been able to distribute over 8,000 halal hot meals to asylum seekers. Every week, we visit shelters in Long Island City and provide meals, but what we hear from people over and over again is the same. The food they are given is of poor quality. At times, we have heard anecdotally that some have been misled into thinking that they are receiving halal food, only to find out later that it contained pork or non-halal ingredients. This isn't just about food, it's about faith, dignity, and respect. For these individuals, eating something that isn't halal isn't just a dietary mistake. It's a violation of their core beliefs and an infringement on their right to practice their religion. What's even more difficult to grasp is the mismanagement of food contracts and the millions of dollars allocated to feed people in need. Whenever I see in the news that millions of taxpayer dollars are being spent on food contracts, I feel devastated. How is it that in a city like New York, one of the wealthiest cities in the world, we are spending millions, but our neighbors are still going hungry and being denied the food that they need? These contracts, instead of providing adequate, culturally competent food, are putting people at risk. The money is being spent, but it's not reaching those who need it the most. Instead, it's being mismanaged, leaving vulnerable communities with food that isn't nourishing, isn't culturally appropriate, and isn't what they deserve. I urge the City Council to take immediate action to address the mismanagement of these contracts and ensure the food provided to asylum seekers and all New Yorkers meet their basic dietary needs and respects their cultural and religious practices. For Muslims, eating halal is about living in alignment with their faith. Our neighbors should not have to choose between their faith and their survival. We must do better. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you so much for testifying. We have now heard from everyone who has signed up to testify. If we have inadvertently missed anyone who would like to testify in person or online, please let us know by putting it in the chat or visit the sergeant's table to complete a witness slip now. Okay, seeing that we have no one else, I will now raise, seeing no one else, I would like to note again that written testimony can be reviewed in full by committee staff, can be submitted up to 72 hours after the close of this hearing by emailing it to testimony@council.nyc.gov. Thank you so much for coming to this hearing. This hearing is now adjourned.